Good morning and welcome to my Legal Lioness channel, where I give you legal analysis of legal cases that are in the media. And today we're talking about Prince Harry and his fight against the newspapers. So he is due in court very shortly for his fight against yet another newspaper. And you'll recall previously he sued a newspaper saying that they did illegal information gathering and phone hacking. And that case settled pretty much on the eve of the trial. He withdrew the case, and the papers made some mealy-mouthed, wishy-washy statement, and everybody walked away from it. And from that case, apparently he had to pay $1.5 million in not damages, court costs. So now this most recent case, this one involves Liz Hurley and Elton John and a whole lot of other people. And this case is to do with, again, where he said that there has been illegal information gathering, basically saying that his phone was hacked, people spied on him. And the basis that he gives for this is that there were stories in the media that he believes could not have found their way to the media in any other way. However, in the previous case, there were indications that, friends might have said something, or somebody put something on a Facebook page before the issue or the story appeared in the media. So he didn't have a very strong case, and it was all just really his suspicions. And the judge in that case was indicating that merely suspecting that somebody's hacked your phone isn't enough. You really have to have proper proof and evidence. So now in this case, they came across, this is Harry's team, came across a private investigator who they said was employed by one of the newspapers. And this private investigator, that there was a written statement given by this private investigator in support of this case. And the statement was to the effect that the newspapers had paid him to spy on Harry and had known and encouraged him to use illegal means to gather the information that they could then get the scoop on and print in their newspapers. And that statement was given back quite a few years ago. But then back in 2022 or 23, the same private investigator came out and said, oh, no, that written statement that you are attributing to me, I did not make that statement. It's got nothing to do with me. The information contained in that statement is false. Yes, Harry's lawyers approached me to give a statement, but I did not give that statement because that is not what happened. And so back in 2022, Harry's legal team knew this. And anyway, fast forward till the end of 2025, things are hotting up because the hearing is due for in the UK courts. The case is due to be heard in the UK courts in the coming weeks, and it's set down for 9 weeks, which is massive, absolutely massive. Some criminal trials can be over in 4 days, so 9 weeks is just astonishing. Anyway, so they're getting closer and closer to the court date. So December 2025, it appeared again in the news about this statement from the PI being, well, not being his statement. He's saying it's a false statement, and he's saying he didn't sign that statement, and those words are not his words. So I don't know why that came back up into the public consciousness and the media at that time. But then Harry's lawyers filed paperwork in the court saying, we do want you to, this is, dear judge, we want you to take into account that man's written statement that we got years ago, even though he's now saying it's false, because he did give that statement, and that is a true and correct statement. And basically implying that somehow the newspapers have paid off this man to now recant the statement, and basically the judge must take it at face value. And they did not want the man, the private investigator, to appear in the case to be cross-examined by the newspaper's lawyers, which is astonishing, absolutely astonishing. The author of the apparent author of the statement is saying that's not my statement, and they still want it to be presented to court as though it's fact, without the statement being challenged and without the man himself being able to give evidence and tell what actually happened. So it's very, very strange. In my 3 decades of being a lawyer, I've never, ever seen anything like that, because the court, believe it or not, actually is there to get to the truth of the matter. That's Sometimes it seems unfair and there's all these legal rules, but the ultimate goal of the court is to get to the truth of the matter so that they can make a good decision based on the law and based on the facts. And if the judges don't have all of the facts, then they can't make a good decision. So in any event, the judge said no. If you want to put that statement into evidence, you can do that, that's fine. But that man will be called before this court and both parties can question him and he can tell his own story. Now, how it works is sometimes when you provide a written statement to the court, if the contents of that statement are not contested, then that witness is not actually called because he's not going to be cross-examined. He or she is not going to be cross-examined. But in this instance, the newspapers' lawyers were saying, well, we want this guy on the stand because we want him to tell the story about this evidence being false. And it astounds me that the lawyers involved in the case have not been investigated for ethics breaches. But I expect that if that ever happened, the top lawyers who probably, just my personal opinion, the top lawyers who probably instigated the obtaining of that statement would probably be beyond reproach because they would have told the junior lawyers to go ahead and get the evidence by hook or by crook. And then the junior lawyers, just following what the senior guys have told them, they're the ones who actually did the dirty work. So they're the ones that would be in serious trouble. And when I was a junior lawyer, I had a very similar situation in one of the law firms that I worked for. The senior partner was instructing me to do something that I felt was a clear breach of ethical boundaries. And I said no. And he was basically threatening me with my job, that I would lose my job. And I just said to him, I can't risk my legal practicing certificate because if I do this bad thing that you want me to do, I could be struck off as a lawyer and that's the end of my career. Anyway, he was furious and I was pretty much blacklisted within the firm. It was years ago, I was really junior still, but there was no progression for me and I was thwarted at every turn. So he didn't fire me, but I really did feel the repercussions. So back to Harry. The news reporting, now, it's not widely reported, but it was reported on an Australian morning TV show that the court case, the Harry's court case, has been pushed back by a week, which is very interesting. And that indicates to me that there's negotiations going on behind the scenes to settle the case. So probably Harry's lawyers are now panicking. They can't use their best evidence that they thought they had. And the costs are racking up, and it's a legal joke that cases settle on the courthouse steps, which it literally sometimes does. You get to the courtroom and then you ask the judge, can we have 20-minute break, and then suddenly the parties will make an agreement. Part of that is they don't want some of the evidence coming out into the public domain. Anyway, so I'm just from that indication. It seems to me that they probably are going to try and settle the case. Now, if I were acting for the newspaper, I'd be saying, okay, sure, we'll settle, but you need to pay our legal costs, which will be in the millions. And even in some preliminary rulings that the judge in this case have given, the judge said the amount of money that is being spent on this legal proceeding is ridiculous and far outweighs any potential outcome or benefit or payout that they might receive from the newspaper. So because they've given this 1 week delay, or they've applied for the 1 week delay according to Australian television, I think that they're trying to nut out a settlement. Now, if I were acting for Harry, I would be trying to withdraw from the case and not have to pay legal fees. Obviously, acting from Harry's side, the lawyers will want some kind of a statement to say there may have been illegal, or they want them to say they did do illegal information gathering. But again, acting for the newspaper, I might say, well, we'll give you a statement that says some rogue investigators may have done some illegal things, but we didn't know about it. So neither side is going to walk away happy from this. It's cost a huge amount of money. The other strange thing about this case is I don't know why the court is allowing it to be heard anyway, because they've gone way past the statute of limitations on this thing. And there was some talk about the argument put forward by Harry's side was, oh, he only became aware of the hacking later, and these other parties only become aware of the hacking later. So therefore, the statute of limitations should run from when they become aware of it. But the evidence around that seemed to be quite murky. The other weird thing is that when Prince William became aware of the phone hacking, this is decades ago, he made a complaint, and that led to a judicial inquiry. Or yeah, I think it was judicial inquiry, called the Levinson Inquiry, and they did find that some newspapers engaged in illegal practices and phone hacking. Newspapers were fined. Some newspapers went out of business, and it was a huge scandal. And the whole newspaper industry was then revamped, and the way that they could gather evidence for stories was revamped. And so, when Prince William triggered that inquiry, the whole news landscape was cleaned up. So what Harry's trying to do here, to hold the newspapers to account, that's already been done. But I suppose he wants to be seen as the hero. Previously, he made that statement that, he's slaying the dragons, and the dragons being the newspapers. Anyway, so outcome, my assessment, probably going to settle. It should have settled years ago, but I think you'll find that somebody like Harry was the one that was pushing, to have his day in court. But that's not all that it's cracked up to be. Anyway, I will keep you posted on this one. Have a fantastic day.